Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. As always, my name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Jim Kalbach, who is the Chief Evangelist at MURAL. We'll talk about what MURAL is a little bit deeper into the show. But first, Jim, can you tell us a little bit more about why collaboration is so important in remote work?
Yeah, I think the world has obviously changed quite a bit due to the pandemic. But if we think about the nature of our organizations and the nature of business in general in a much more complex global environment, I think that team collaboration in particular is more and more important for innovation. A lot of companies struggle to innovate consistently and successfully. And some have tried to make a process around it. They believe innovation is a process. There are other apocryphal stories about innovation being a happy accident. But if you really think about it, innovation inside of organization, it's really about having well-functioning teams that collaborate well and can be creative to drive business results.
I know we met when you reached out about my Harvard Business Review article on how to collaborate effectively in remote settings to innovate well. So, because of course, lots of people do believe that you can't innovate effectively in remote settings. And so let's talk a little bit more about innovation in remote settings in particular. So what is different about innovation in remote settings, and why don't traditional leaders get how to do it well?
Yeah, I think when we were a more office-based culture before the pandemic, and even decades ago, I think a lot of collaboration was kind of given by the office and the office space. And we would go in the morning and greet our colleagues, and then there'd be coffee breaks and the proverbial water cooler talks. But we also got to know our colleagues as well too at lunchtime and happy hour and things like that. And I think core to a team being innovative is connection, right? That they are connected on multiple levels. And we're not saying they have to be your friends. We're not talking about, best friends, but there are relationships that are there. So when we talk about a team in general, and when we talk about team collaboration, I think underlying that is a notion of an elevated or an intentional and intensified connection that you have to have. And when you take the office away and you don't have those spontaneous meetings and you're bumping into your colleagues, the question is, how do you stay connected, right? And that's why we place so much focus on team connection. And this doesn't necessarily mean quarterly team retreats or yearly company retreats. There are things that you can do in a remote setting to keep teams connected, because that's how you get the psychological safety that's needed for creativity, which is needed for innovation as well too. So I think being much more intentional and thinking about the remote condition and how do you connect when you have teams that are remote. It's all possible, but I think we have to rethink how that's done.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. What good techniques have you seen to connect teams in remote settings?
Sure. Well, I just want to say I'm not against company retreats and team retreats. In fact, one of the things that I've said very often in the past is one of the best ways to work in a remote team is to actually meet in person if you can. Right. It might only be once or once a year, whatever. That's always great because then you can understand their personality and you're able to interpret their remote communication better. But that's sometimes costly and sometimes not possible. And I think the way to think about it is to think in small multiples. So rather than having big events that are focused on team building, just bring small little rituals and habits into your regular interaction that help build connection, like a simple check-in. Before you start a meeting, you do a quick check-in. And that could be, how do you feel today on a slider? It could be, what did you do on the weekend? And, you put something in a mural canvas, for instance, that's visual, and then you can have a small conversation. It doesn't have to take more than 5 minutes, sometimes even just 2 minutes. But instead of thinking about connection as, a quarterly team event, it's something that you can do on a regular ongoing basis in very, very small doses.
Okay, so that's some examples, but how does that contribute to creativity? So we talked about connection and creativity. So let's talk about the connection between connection and creativity. So how would you leverage those brief check-ins or other tools, other ways of connecting for employees into creativity?
I think it's around trust and psychological safety. If you have a team that you want to innovate, and precursor to that is being creative, you need a certain degree of trust, and in particular psychological safety. And psychological safety is the condition, the climate in which people are able to speak up and speak their minds without fear of punishment or retribution, that their ideas are welcome and included. And underlying that is this notion of trust. Right. So that which is part of connection, by the way. So I'm getting a little bit more specific here, is that creative teams need a certain degree of trust. Otherwise, they're not going to be creative. The way to get trust is not through competence. We very often think that we trust people who are competent, right? So look at my bullet points or look at my deliverable, right? That's actually not how you build trust. You build trust with vulnerability, by opening up and saying, I don't know the answer to that, or I'm a human being, or I'm a person, I share the same fears that you do. And those small moments that I just mentioned are opportunities for you and the managers, by the way, that managers can also open up and be vulnerable. It's a moment where you can be vulnerable. And if you do that over time, you actually start to build trust. So if you need psychological safety and trust in order to be creative and innovative, the types of check-ins and the small moments of vulnerability that I mentioned, that's how you do it over time.
Okay, that's interesting, because when I think about trust and connection, I think that's, if you don't necessarily, one of the benefits of collaborating and innovating remotely is that you don't need as much trust. And here's why. So you read my Harvard Business Review article, and that talked about a technique that is specifically trustless. It does not rely on trust. So I use this technique, for example, in a CEO kickoff meeting, strategy kickoff meeting for a Fortune 200 high-tech manufacturing company called Applied Materials, which gave me a testimonial. Let me talk about their work. And that involved something like 400 leaders from across the whole company, who the large majority of whom never met each other, had no trust. And the technique involved them contributing ideas anonymously. Contributing ideas anonymously, and then evaluating the ideas of their others who contributed ideas anonymously. So I think you don't necessarily need trust. You can also use tools like anonymity to innovate, be creative in a remote setting. And that, of course, wouldn't work in an in-person setting, which is one benefit of remote innovation and remote collaboration, that you have to take away that necessity to build trust and even status hierarchies, because even if you have trust, some people on the team will be higher status, some people will be lower status. Some people at that CEO kickoff meeting were higher status, some people lower status. But you know what? When you can't see whose name is attached to an idea, you're just evaluating the idea, and you're just contributing the idea and evaluating. So that's something I think was beneficial.
That's interesting. I would say being anonymous that's the psychological safety part of it, actually.
Of course,
people feel psychologically safe because they're not being evaluated. It's only their idea, and the anonymous aspect of that actually allows them to feel safer. I think I was talking about teams in the sense of a unit of a group of people, and their identities are known, and there's some continuity there as well too. It's not just, they're not just meeting once. For instance, that it's going to be a team that's working towards it might just be a project team that disbands after the project, but the assumption there that it's ongoing work. And I think in those environments, it does help to open up and be a little, lead with vulnerability.
Yes. So, and it, of course, can sometimes still be helpful to make sure that people are anonymous in contributing ideas, especially in evaluating ideas. That can be tricky.
Agreed. In fact, we have a feature in MURAL called private mode, and that helps when you're actually doing the idea. I mean, your whole example that you said, that was all anonymous, but you can bring in anonymous aspects as you need them in remote
Yes.
creativity as well too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about the mural and how you can use mural for innovation. So for listeners who don't know much about mural, can you please introduce them to mural?
Sure. So MURAL is a cloud-based application that you can access right through your browser, and it's essentially a whiteboard, a blank space that you can navigate, and you move in and out a lot like you would Google Maps. So if you've ever used Google Maps, you zoom in and out, you pan left and right, but it's blank. And the map that you create with elements like sticky notes and text and images, it's actually a map of your conversation. It's a map of your ideas. So what MURAL does is it allows you to visualize the conversation that you're having. It allows everybody individually to visualize their ideas, much like you would sticky notes on a whiteboard in a physical room. You can now do this right through your browser, right through your computer. And the idea of zooming and panning gives that spatial effect to it. You have an upper left and a lower right, and you can move across, and you can move from chaos to structure, as we like to say, or brainstorming to clusters. And you can do it all in one space. It's a virtual space, but it allows for that visual, creative kind of thinking where things maybe aren't as linear or structured. It's not like reading an Excel sheet. You're not doing finances, right? You're trying to work with creativity and ideas. So MURAL really pairs well with teams or points in a project or an effort where you need to kind of hash out what it is and figure out what the creative solutions are, and doing that together as well too. That's the thing. Multiple people, everybody's contributing at the same time. So much like being in a room with a whiteboard, you actually see the other content and you can interact with everybody else's content. Again, right through your browser, right through the cloud.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, it has an anonymous feature. So if you want to contribute anonymously, you can also do that. And that, of course, is beneficial in certain innovation settings where you want to give people anonymity, because again, to let people who are junior status on the team, or a team that doesn't, a group of people who don't necessarily have trust with each other, that can be quite helpful.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that we see, it offers another mode of expression. Some people like to type a lot and they write long emails or long Slack messages, or they document very well, and they're very good at documenting things. Other people on Zoom calls, if you're talking about a remote setting, they'll speak up and they like to turn their webcams on and raise their hand. But what we found with MURAL is that it actually allows people to express themselves who aren't good in either of those modes, or who don't feel comfortable in those modes. So sometimes you get this almost a reversal of effect in terms of contribution and inclusion. I'm the kind of person, if you put me in a room, I'm going to grab the marker and go right up to the whiteboard and write. And the other people sit in the back of the room. With MURAL, the person in the back of the room now has as much power and as much control because they can contribute in a different way. And we've seen that with team. We've had people tell us that, right? Where suddenly there's this person in the team that they didn't know had all these great ideas because they're able to contribute silently and in a way that's, not just writing a text document. There is some typing involved. I don't want to say there's no text involved, but you're writing individual ideas on sticky notes. And what you get is you get a different type of expression. And when you combine those things, text versus speaking versus visualizing it, you actually get a much richer picture from your team in terms of perspectives and ideas.
Excellent. And of course, MURAL facilitates collaboration by remote workers. So tell me a little bit more about how remote employees use MURAL to collaborate together effectively, whether it's for innovation, whether it's for project management, whether it's for mind mapping, other forms of collaboration.
Yeah, the range of things you can do with MURAL is actually quite extensive, but typically, classically, we do play in the space of creative problem solving. I would put it. So creating something like a mind map, like you said, is you start with a blank canvas and you say, what is this domain? What is this space that we're exploring? And you can kind of freely branch out. You can create a map of that space in a free visualization in terms of the structure of it. It's not linear, right? Brainstorming. But we also see teams like an agile development team, for instance. Agile is very rigorous in backlog management and burn down rate and tickets, and they're able to measure exactly where they are. But before they get to that point, they have to do something called sprint planning or epic planning, where they kind of take everything and they put it out on a board and they say, what are all the parts that we have, right? So MURAL is really good when you're in those types of phases where it's not 100% clear what you're going to do. That is, it's not structured for you in a database or an Excel sheet or a project plan, and you have to figure things out. The way we like to say it is MURAL is good for planning the plan, right? So if you think about what's similar about all of those things that I was talking about, mind mapping, brainstorming, design work where you're exploring options, planning the plan, is that it tends to be non-linear. That is, that anybody can contribute at any point, and you're kind of building the structure, right? I'm going to build the plan that follows. I'm going to build the designs that we're going to actually then implement. And when you're in those kinds of phases, MURAL is very, very powerful.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, that's very clear and helpful. As we wrap up, is there anything that you haven't shared about remote work, about MURAL, about collaboration, innovation that you want to finish up with as we're coming to the close of our conversation?
Yeah, just one more thing. So we talked a little bit about trust and psychological safety. We talked a little bit about visualizing work, having a visual means of expression. But I also think, bringing in this aspect of play and fun is also very important to us here at MURAL. And, just the different colored sticky notes, but also, things like images and icons, they enrich the content of whatever problem you're working on in a way that makes work more playful and more engaging, I believe, for people as well, too. And we've had teams tell us this, even if they're remote, in fact, particularly if they're remote, that they feel engaged and connected in their work when they're doing it in MURAL. And I think that's because it's rich, right? It's rich, and it can be very fun and playful as well, too, that you could take something that's otherwise dry, reading off bullet points or looking at columns in an Excel sheet, and you can make it engaging and fun and playful. Play, by the way, disarms fear as well, too. So by making your work visual and playful, you actually disarm fear, and that's how you get people to open up. That also fuels creativity and innovation as well, too. So think about how you can make work more fun, playful, and engaging.
Excellent. I think that's a very important sentiment. All right. Thank you for contributing to this episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Really appreciate it. And thank you to the listeners of the Wise Decision Maker Show for checking out our podcast. Please make sure to subscribe wherever you checked us out, and make sure to leave a review. It really helps us know how to improve the show, whether it's working for you, whether we can do something better, and it helps other folks discover the show. All right. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest, most profitable decisions to you, my friends.